Well, when I got out of prison, I'm a natural connector. I love people, like meeting new people. And I've been very proactive about if I know people are in the space of criminal justice reform, formerly incarcerated, like part of, like I want to be in that space. And so I've been networking like crazy. That's how we met, right? And so they saw I'm on social media. I'm being real vocal. For me, I have to get away from the secrecy of my childhood. And so I'm being real transparent about the fact where I've been, what I've done, and what I want to do. Well, the director of DUPI, Dr. Ashley Hamilton, saw what I was doing. And so she reached out to me because I was in the middle of a class with DUPI when I left prison, and I wanted to finish it because I wanted that continuity, right? Mm-hmm. And they let me do that. So I was in touch with several people at DU. And so she sort of reached out to them, reached out to me, and they actually offered me a job. Like I now work as a paid program assistant for DUPI. Like nice. That's just so cool. And last week they interviewed me for the podcast. So it's going to be interesting to see when that season comes out. But that's going to be really cool because those are played for people in prison. And so I still have friends in prison, men and women, who will hear that and be like, hey, I know her. Like, and that's just cool because I want to help people still inside. Another organization that I'm working with is called the Realness Project. People around the country may have heard of an organization called Authentic Relating. So the Realness Project is, I guess let's call it the nonprofit arm that goes into the prisons and teaches authentic relating practices to people who are incarcerated. So they came into the prison. That's how I first met them, was down at La Vista in July of 2019. And what I love about the program is it's about communication. It's about becoming vulnerable. It's about getting to know yourself and sharing your real self with other people around you. So it's not just for people in prison, right? It's for anybody who's human and communicates.
Right.
But they come in and do a 2-day program in prison. And I just stayed in, like, I'm a firm believer that if you come into the prison and teach me a program and give me a way to stay in touch with you, I'm going to stay in touch with you because I'm a natural networker. So shortly before I left prison, I reached out to them and sent a letter to the address that they had on their flyers. Hey, I'm looking at getting out of prison. I loved what you did for me there. I want to connect. So I connected with Lori, who's the executive director of Realness Project. And we had some conversations, and she actually offered me a position developing a graduate program for them. So I'm going to be working with reentry, as the graduates of the program come out of prison, we're going to route them to whatever resources are available we're not going to recreate the wheel, but I'm enough of a connector that I know people already in the space do. And if you need help with housing or bus tickets or whatever, we're going to try and connect you to what you need. But I never expected them to offer me a job, but they believe in the work I've put in for myself and the transformation that I'm still working on. And they were willing to validate and encourage that. And so I have 2 paid positions with jobs and the beautiful thing, whatever else you might want to say about the halfway house, what I'm doing is completely outside their box, but they've approved it and they're letting me do it.
Right.
They didn't have to do that, but they are. Right. So I get to go on campus. I still work. So I have 3 jobs, right? So it's a little hectic sometimes making everything fit, but I'm making it work. And I just, do the best I can every day. But I'm blessed with people that believe in me, people that want to support me, people that see the transformation. They see that I want to help other people in prison. I'm a firm believer in those of us that are formerly incarcerated. We have to stick together and help each other.
Definitely.
We've talked about that some, like we get it in a different way. Like I adore my fiance, but he's never going to understand what it's like to spend a night in jail because he's never had to do it. And you and I can have a conversation that I don't have to explain, like we talked about. I don't have to tell you what a spread is. I don't have to explain the whole to you. I don't like some of that stuff that, okay, maybe different from California to Colorado, right? But we have that shared history that help. Like sometimes I just need to talk to somebody who's been where I've been and who gets it in a different way. I think it's great that people want to volunteer in prison and help. Like, hell yeah, let's do that.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But sometimes I just need to talk to somebody who's been where I've been.
Yeah, and I tell people all the time, and I'm pretty sure I was telling you and Carlos this the other day, but like I used to have these huge birthday parties, and it was basically 99.9% ex-convicts, right?
Yep.
And it was therapy for us, but just as much for us as our significant others
Right.
that had to deal with us, and they would talk and start to realize like there's more pros to the cons, right?
Right.
And it's just a matter of understanding that we see and do things a little differently because of what we went through, and
Right.
it's usually beneficial, it's not negative to the people that we're with. So
Right.
And I will tell one story. I know this is more about you, but I'll never forget my wife made a comment about leaving the toilet paper on top of a spool because a friend's significant other posted a picture on social media and was like, I can't get it through his head to put the toilet paper in. And she's like, yeah, my husband does that sometimes too. And I go, it's not that we're lazy, it's that we're not used to leaving toilet paper in the bathroom. You bring it to the bathroom and then you got to take it back because it's like a commodity, and not because of COVID. It's a freaking commodity in jail or in prison.
You have to take your toilet paper everywhere
you
you
don't
go.
leave it there. It's not like you go to the bathroom and there's toilet paper there. And she was like,
Right.
what? And I'm like,
no.
But you would never know that because you've never been to jail or prison or anything else. So for us, we're like, what are you talking about? Like, be happy I left it in the bathroom.
I have a roll at the end of my bed right now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's your Kleenex, that's your toilet paper, that's your freaking whatever else you need it for, right? Your paper towel.
Yes. True.
So, but
nobody knows that until you've been to prison.
And it's just like, to this day, 12 years, I still eat with a spoon.
Really?
Unless it's something I really have to, like a steak or something, like I will always want a spoon. And my wife always brings me a fork and I'm like, can you just bring me a spoon? Give me a spoon. She's like, maybe we should buy some sporks. And I'm like, nah, I didn't have a spork in prison. I had a spoon.
We had sporks. We had orange plastic sporks.
We had those too, but I always went with the canteen, the spoon. Like I like the spoon. Right. I got very good at using the spoon.
Yeah, one of my favorites. So when somebody else left, she left me her spoon, and because even on our canteen they just sell sporks.
Really? Interesting.
So getting a spoon. So it used to be in the old days, way before COVID, you could order in from a restaurant, like once a month they would do like a special food ordering day, like a Subway or whatever, and so that's how you got a spoon, right? And so when one of my friends left, she left me her spoon, and I actually still have it. I brought it with me. Yes.
In California, I'll say about every quarter, sometimes it would be a little bit more. We couldn't get from like restaurants per se, but they would do some kind of a sale, and it would usually be like KFC or maybe pizzas or maybe rotisserie chickens, but it wouldn't be necessarily like restaurant, but they'd give you your list of stuff, and you could spend like, it was a ridiculous amount of money. You could spend like $200 on food. And I'd always be like, yeah, like that was good for the people that owed money because they would pay people off.
Right. But that doesn't happen in prison. No loaning and bartering.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you see a guy pull a fat bed of food and then it's like disappears 10 different ways. Yeah. Right. Anyway. Yeah. But where I was the entrepreneurial guy, right? You and your cell phone thing. They would do like you could get the big old thing of carnitas and tortillas and stuff. So I would buy all this stuff and then make tacos and sell them 2 for $1. Like, yeah, I'm like that $150 I spent, I'm gonna make 500 off of that.
Oh yeah, easy.
Like this. Yeah, I loved it. I was like, oh, I'm a hustler. I'm gonna make it work. All right, so you're in jail, you're in a bunk, not a whole lot different, right?
Not really.
Where are you at in your stay? How much longer do you have there? And what are the plans once you can parole from jail?
Right. So I'm on level 3 of the matrix. They do a matrix system here, which is 4 levels for DOC clients. So I'm jumping through and the levels are things like on level 1, it's getting a job, like making sure you have an ID in your social to get a job. Like it's things like that, right? A lot of writing papers, doing a collage, whatever your case manager, each level you get roughly 8 things you have to do, and your case manager assigns that to you. So if you're motivated, it's on you how long it takes to do your matrix. So if you turn in 2 assignments a week, that's a month a level. So I'm on that plan. I'm a proactive kind of girl. So I'll be turning in my last 2 assignments for level 3 this week.
Nice.
Going to level 4. I'll be eligible to apply for ISP. Of course, the halfway house is telling me I'm not allowed to apply. So we'll see how that works out. Well, they want the rent money. That's how that works. So we'll see. I believe, if I remember correctly, the AR that covers DOC rules is I'm eligible to go out on ISP 6 months before my PED. Well, my PED is in January, so that means I should go out in June. Mm-hmm. Right. So I have a workaround to get the paperwork I need because that's the kind of girl I am. And I'll be submitting that paperwork here soon. So ISP is basically the ankle monitor. It's that transition step between the halfway house and full on home. So I will be going home to my fiance's house. I'm able to go home on visits now once a week, so that's fantastic. We've been doing a lot of cleaning because that bachelor pad needs it, and kind of making it more our space, not just his space, right? So I'm able to do that. But the plan is to live there with him. When I can have permission to get married, we will get married and go through all of that stuff. But just, moving forward with life. And I'll be eligible for parole in January. So I'll have my parole hearing that I would imagine I will make it. I don't know why I wouldn't. And then I'll be on parole. I have a 5-year tail, as we like to call it. I won't serve all 5 of that. I'll probably serve half that, because I do what I'm supposed to do and I jump through the hoop.
So basically, all things going the way they should. June, July, you got an ankle bracelet. January, February, you're on parole, no ankle bracelet. And then a couple years later, you're quote unquote free.
Right. That's the point.
So, keywords, right? Popped up a couple of times talking about support and dealing with issues, right? What are you doing or what's being done for you in regards to support and helping you through your issues, if anything?
So the system doesn't do jack for me. I don't qualify for any sort of mental health help because here, at least, they look at, have you had a diagnosis before? Have you been prescribed meds before? Those people get more help. I never had any of that, so I don't qualify for their assistance. So I'm in a therapy group here at the halfway house, which is less than worthless. It's the hoop I jump through. I find I'm not opposed to therapy. Please don't get me wrong. I actually love therapy. What I don't like about it here is everyone's forced into it. More often than not, it ends up being a complaint session about the halfway house. I get it. The halfway house sucks sometimes. Yes, that's not why I'm going to therapy. So I've asked to be allowed to be either put in an individual group so I can actually talk or see my own therapist. They'll probably approve one of those options. So I'm, remember, proactive kind of girl. So I've reached out to organizations. I'm in several mentoring groups. I see a therapist myself. I've reached out for my own help, and I've been building my own support network because I know that's what I need. I cannot, me personally, live alone, have no support, live under a rock. That's just not who I am. I'm a very, in case you hadn't noticed, social kind of girl. So I like meeting people. I like talking to people. And especially I'm learning to become more open, become more vulnerable, share more of my story, because somebody's going to get something from it somewhere. And so that's what I try to do. I love to speak, love to write. I'm working with the Prison Journalism Project, and I'm actively seeking more stories nationally. I'm their first outreach fellow that they've ever had. So anybody listening, if you want to write about your story for prison, I want to hear about it, right? We can get you published. But so I'm creating my own support network because I know that's what I need. And I'm making sure that I'm surrounding myself with, I don't care what your shit is that you got to work on. If you're working on your stuff, that's what we all need to be doing. We need to be helping each other work on our stuff, no matter what it is. So that's what I'm creating. So a lot of people who are formerly incarcerated, because I think it's important that we support each other. It's, right? We don't always get a fair shot. There's a lot of stigma attached around being fresh out of prison, right? And actually not even fresh. Anytime you have a history of being in prison, there's a stigma there and there's some shame there. And we have to work on changing that. And I think that's important. So I choose to do that. I'm in touch with a couple representatives, a couple state senators, reform coalitions. Like, I believe in connecting and reaching out. And so that's what I do. I'm trying very hard to be purposeful in what I'm doing and how I'm trying to help. Because those girls like Claire and some of the other girls that are still in prison, I want to help them if I can. And that might just be being someone to listen to them sometimes, right? But okay, sure, prison's not as bad as what you see on Locked Up and Raw and some of these TV shows, right? But it's also not as good as it could be. And I might be one of the first women that's really talking about it, but I won't be the last. I mean, if I have to be the first, I'm okay with that. And like we've talked about before, we're never going to say there's not a place for prison, because there is. But it shouldn't be as bad and as hard as it is either. Like, we're still human beings who deserve some dignity and compassion. And by shining a light, is it as bad here as it could be? No, it could be. I've heard of worse. Let's talk about Angola. Like, we've heard about worse places. It's not as bad as it could be, but it still isn't good in any way. And sure, Mr. Williams is doing everything he can, but we also have to change state statute. We also have to change the minds of people who fund prisons. There's so much work to be done, but you have to start somewhere. And if I'm that one baby step that can change someone's mind a rice size, okay, I'll do that.
Well, yeah, and I agree 100%. I think baby steps. So for people like us and people not like us who are just supportive, to think something's going to happen overnight, it's not, right? The flip side is, it's kind of like California changed from California Department of Corrections to California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, right? And some great programs did come in. My challenge to the powers that be are, what inmates did you talk to determine what we needed? And I'm talking about like us, people that are out,
people that are in,
quote unquote, being successful, right? To say, this is what I needed while I was in. And then people that are in, right? And I think that's where you get a consensus, and you'll get the buy-in, not only from the people that are doing the programs, but the people that'll be going through them, right? I mean, you'll have inmates that want to go because, hell, I was part of the group that masterminded this, right? So I think there needs to be a lot more interaction, and something that we kind of talked about at one point was, like, wouldn't it be cool to get contracted out by the Department of Corrections to help make things better, right? And better in the sense that it's a safer environment for the guards to work in. It's a better place for the inmates. So it's something that benefits everyone, not just the inmates, because then hell, you're just being too nice to the bad criminals, right? No, but
and we're not saying that, but it has to be safe for everybody, including the staff. They deserve to go home to their family every night. Of course, I'm sorry, I don't believe, I've never been a believer in us versus them, green versus blue, like here in Colorado, we're green, right? I don't, and if that makes me a bad inmate, I'm sorry, but I believe in humanity, right? And sure, there's some bad apples on both sides, absolutely. Never going to say there's not. But in general, for me, I have to believe we have to make prisons a safer environment for everybody.
For everyone. Yeah. No, definitely.
Staff, volunteers, the residents, the workers, everybody. It needs to be safe.
And it needs to be, to me, it's all about that change element, right? What is the system doing to help change individuals? Like, I don't care if once again, if you stole $5,000 or if you killed 5,000 people, what are we now doing to help fix that, right? And that goes for, you know, the lifers without parole, the LWOPs, right? Like everyone, because eventually there might be a statute saying, you know what, you did 40 years.
Well, and
you're now more of a burden on society inside than out, right?
And we need to look at the LWOP thing in general. Like, that is strictly about punishment. That's not about anything else.
Right, because
at what point has somebody proven that they have turned themselves around?
And to me, that really pushes people to like, if I had life without, hell, I'd have to say, why aren't I just killing people while I'm in here? Because I'm never going home anyway. And you know, and
I can see both sides of that.
I will say I'm not necessarily for or against death penalty, because I've seen too many people on death row that were found innocent 20, 30 years later. So it's kind of like, damn, what if we had killed that individual and then they were innocent? Like, Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah, but I believe in the death penalty, right?
But at the same time, if you're going to give someone life without, why aren't you just send them to death?
You might, because that's what you're doing.
You know, why?
It's semantics.
Unless we're going to find another Australia and send people like, hey, there's your penal colony. You're not allowed to ever leave. And
maybe that's what they're looking at Mars for.
More like, we'll go to Mars and this will be the penal colony.
Maybe.
Because Mars is going to be better.
Right. So we need to fix the system we've got.
We do. And I'll be the first to say there's no right answer, but we can definitely work towards better, right?
Right. Which means more humane people.
And I think it's more about understanding. I think a lot of the stuff that's been going on out here in the last few years with social unrest and injustice, I'm hoping that's starting to open people's eyes to, like, if you think it's bad out here, imagine what it is in there, you know? Right.
That racial disparity, like, come on, the Black community especially has been ravaged by incarceration. Like, that's just a fact, people. It's not a racial thing. That's just the way I'm not saying, like, that's just the way that's played out. Black and brown communities have a larger percentage of people incarcerated.
100%. And I know in California, like, Blacks and whites are about even, but if you look at demographics, Blacks are a minority, so that's how they should be represented, right? So anyway, it's and there's 28 ways to look at that and break it down of why this and why that. But we have a lot of issues going on, and they start out here and then they filter inside and then they come back out. So and usually they come out worse than when they went in. So we definitely have to work towards that. I don't want to hold you up any longer. I know you're like on the bunk and everything. You probably have other people you want to talk to. Closing thoughts, words of advice. Go.
Wow. Closing thoughts, words of advice. Let's see. I guess if you're someone that's been formerly incarcerated and you're having a rough time, hold on, it gets better. Keep plugging. Find some people to talk to. For crying out loud, reach out to me, right? Reach out to Tito. Like, we'll figure it out. We're here for each other. We want to support each other. For people that maybe have never been in prison, right? But are supportive, are curious, what are you doing besides just listening to this podcast, watching the video, right? What else? It's not necessarily about throwing money at the problem. It's, are you volunteering? Is there some other way that you could be helping? Could you hire someone coming out of prison? Could you help them with hygiene? Could you, like, is there something else, right? Could you help with transportation? Whatever. There are organizations in your state, I promise you, I don't care what state it is, there's some organization there that could use your help, right? Whether it's money, whether it's time, whether it's investment of resources, there's an organization where you are that needs your help to help the formerly incarcerated.
Definitely.
Look at legislation. Do these laws make sense? What lobbying could you testify on a bill? Could you, like, there's some way you could help do so. It's not, and the other thing I guess I would ask for is some patience. When we get out of prison, it's not poof, flipping a switch. It takes time to reintegrate. It takes time to change our headspace and to learn different ways. So be patient with those of us that are coming out. We're doing the best we can. Some help would be great, some empathy, right? Try to understand where we've been. But it does get better. It's worth the struggle every day. It's worth it. And we'll get there. And I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Yeah, no, appreciate those words. And I will piggyback one quick thing on what you said, which is the being patient with us. And I'll paint a picture of, you know, jumping into an ice cold swimming pool. Like, people out here have the luxury of putting their toe in and kind of feeling it out. We just get thrown into the pool, and it's a shock. It's new. It's what we want, but we might not understand it depending on how long we've been gone and what we've been through inside. And and literally this morning at the gym, a guy was standing behind me, and I'm on the treadmill, and I don't turn the TV on, and I can see him in the monitor. So I literally almost fell off the damn thing, because now I'm watching him. And then I realized the treadmill that's shut down on each side of me for COVID, there's a sports thing on. He's watching the sports thing.
Right.
And but I'm sitting there like ready to turn around and like punch him in the face. And that's 12 years out of prison. But my spidey sense, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you standing behind me? Why are you just standing there? And I'm like jogging like this, going, okay, I'm about to. And then out of the corner of my eye, I can see football stuff. And I'm like,
oh.
I'm like, dude, go get from behind me, man. But
he probably never even thought about it.
It doesn't go away. And that's really 12 years later, it doesn't go away, you know? And I like to think it's partially a good thing, because I have good situational awareness, but I don't like feeling that way. So yes, have patience with us. We're damaged goods. We're like salvage stuff that didn't sell in the store. Like, you need to be gentle with us. Anyway, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I definitely look forward to you having an ankle bracelet, which sounds horrible, but it's a good thing.
Next step in the process.
Yes, I look forward to more interactions. We're on like 7 different calls every other week together, so that's always fun.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I will see you tomorrow. And that's another project we're both working on. So yeah, just I really appreciate your time. As always, this will take a little while to get out. The podcast will be quicker than the video, but we'll get it out. And hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too. I'll see you tomorrow.
I will see you tomorrow. All right. Be safe.
You too.
Hey, so real quick, had to cut that off. That basically sums up Joybelle while she was incarcerated. Kind of didn't have the segue in there, so I'm throwing this in, this quick edit. But needless to say, part 3, we'll be talking about post-incarceration after she's been released, what she's been doing. And mind you, there's been so much more. I took forever getting this edited, so my apologies. Catch you on the next one.